Right now, we will go to the Boomer Jacks Bar and Grill hotline, where we will welcome in from DallasCowboys.com. He's Kyle Youmans joining us here on the Get Right.
Now, before we go any further, what's up, Kyle? First of all, how you doing this evening?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Going pretty good. Just for everyone's edification, because I told Alec I would let him pronounce your name how he was pronouncing it. What is the appropriate pronunciation of your name? As I'm sure you have to do frequently.
Yeah, every once in a while. Honestly, the guys at the Fan get it, and I mean, I could have heard a breakup there, but it's Youmans. So basically, you take the U out of it. There's no U. And so Youmans. I mean, there's U when you spell it, but whenever you say it, it's Youmans. And so whenever you roll it together, Youmans.
Okay. Now, Medford, do you feel like that's how you were saying it earlier?
I just say it fast. I thought I've always had that.
Very good.
Yeah.
It sounded like you were adding an L sound in there, but you know what? My ears could just be wrong. It happens.
I've said it a few times now.
We would need to replay it, so I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible. You get the recording, just make it a drop, and we'll go from there. You can ask Sean and RJ too in the morning, because I know they've had it as a drop for a little while too.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones that Peyton sprinkles in. He just did it yesterday during the crosstalk with KNC. It's the dumbest thing they have going right now. It's the best thing ever, but
I love it. I think it's great.
It is great. And Kyle, what was not great this past Sunday was the Cowboys' run defense. And Dan Quinn said earlier that their secret sauce was missing, and what that was their ball hawking and their tackling. Do you think the solution or the fix there is as simple as being better at tackling or ball hawking, or is there some sort of like deeper level explanation to what went wrong?
It may be a little bit of both. And I feel like that might be a bit of a cop-out answer, possibly. But I think the tackling was bad. And if you go back and you watch the All-22, I mean, you didn't even need to really watch the All-22. You could see that pretty significantly on Sunday. They weren't good at finishing tackles, and they have been at times this year. There have been other games that they haven't necessarily finished like they normally do, Arizona being the first one that comes to mind. Of course, San Francisco, and they were both losses as well. But there have been times this year where they've been up and they've been down in terms of the tackling thing. So that makes me feel like it's a deeper problem than really what we've seen. I mean, the Cowboys against top three rushing offenses in terms of rushing yards per game, in terms of the top seven, rather, they're 0-3. So top seven rushing attacks in the NFL, they're 0-3 against those teams. And those teams are San Francisco, Buffalo, and Arizona. They're all in the top seven. Sitting there at eighth is Philadelphia, who, of course, was one of your four losses as well. So all four of your losses have been top eight rushing attacks. Nobody else has beaten this Dallas Cowboys team this year. That makes me think this is a problem. And they've got a chance to take a step forward and take a step in the right direction this week if they slow down Miami. Miami is currently the number 4 rushing attack in the NFL. And then Detroit is number 2. So you have a chance to buck that trend at this point and turn things around. But until you really do that, I think it is a deeper problem. Maybe it's the interior defensive line. Maybe it's decision-making at the second level at the linebacker position, inexperience at the linebacker position, or maybe you need some extra help from your safeties. But it certainly isn't something that I think is a quick fix. Tackling would go a long way, but I definitely think it's something else on their mind that they're trying to get off their mind as they go into this matchup with the Dolphins.
Kyle, keeping in line with talking about how to fix this run defense, I know that you mentioned many things that go into it. One of the things you didn't talk about was size. It felt like this particular matchup with the Bills, they big boyed you. They weight roomed this Cowboys team. And one of the places where it's very evident that this Cowboys team is a little bit smaller is in the linebacker room because of the injuries that you've suffered to Leighton Vander Esch, Damone Overshown. You've had Marquise Bell step in pretty well, I might add, but, at a smaller size. And so, obviously, the Miami Dolphins don't pose that particular challenge. However, now that's the book out, right? And I wonder if, teams are going to try and get after that. People have suggested the idea of maybe Micah Parsons going back to linebacker to help address some of that. What is your response to that assertion that Micah Parsons could help this by playing linebacker, like true inside linebacker?
Yeah, I don't love that. And I know it's been a talking point on Twitter. But if you're taking him out of the pass rush equation to step back and play linebacker, then you're taking away what he does best and what teams try and game plan against. And they have to game plan for Micah Parsons. He's double-teamed more than any player in the NFL as an edge rusher, and there's a reason for that. And if they're spending their resources trying to stop Micah Parsons, that's where you get a relentless pass rush. That's where you have guys like DeMarcus Lawrence, Dorrance Armstrong, Osa Odigizua that have an impact as well. I think you need more from the guys that I mentioned a minute ago as defensive tackle and linebacker. I think if you have better games from Damone Clark and from Mozzie Smith, that goes a long way. And not having Jonathan Hankins there is big. He is your physicality. He is your beef in the middle of that defensive line. And the biggest player, you talked about the size discrepancy against Buffalo, the biggest player that Dallas had, at least on their roster, on their listed 53-man roster, was Mozzie Smith at 337 pounds when they weighed him at the combine. He's not playing at 337 pounds. He's more closer to 300 right now. He's lost a significant amount of weight, and because of that, I think there's ways that he's been affected, and he's had to learn new things as a rookie, and it hasn't turned into production yet. And I'm not giving up on Mozzie yet. It would take a lot for me to give up on Mozzie. I still think throughout his career he can be a productive interior defensive lineman. But from what we've seen here in 2023, it's not an immediate fix throwing 58 in there and saying, get after it, rookie, have fun. You can't necessarily solve it like that. You're going to have to find scheme possibilities, and you're going to have better play from your linebackers, which I think defensive tackle play helps those linebackers out, but you need them to be better decision makers and be more on top of those decisions earlier in the play if you're even going to have a remote level of success stopping the run.
Kyle, you mentioned earlier, Twitter talking points, and one that came up yesterday was Justin Houston getting released by the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. Just throwing it out there, since everybody sees a veteran, get waived late in the season. It happens to be at a position that you got beat up in. Would you personally have any interest? Because for me, I don't think he moves the same way he used to 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. I'd personally be out. What would you think?
Yeah, I think you would. I wouldn't be against kicking the tires and at least seeing what he has. You've done that a couple times already. You go and get Rashad Evans. You brought in Shaq Leonard to see what he had, and ultimately it wasn't enough to sign him. Maybe you, since it is at a position of need, maybe you do your homework. Maybe you at least look at what he could bring. But I think I'm with you. Just based off of the limited amount that I've seen him both last year and this year, because he hasn't played a whole lot this year due to injury, at least recently. I think I'm with you. I don't think he moves the same way. I said the same thing about Shaq Leonard, and honestly, if I had to put the two together, I think Shaq probably was in better game shape. So maybe it's something that you look into, but I think from an organizational standpoint, they would have to be impressed to a certain level in order for them to make a move and possibly take a look at him deeper and bring him in for a signing.
We're talking to Kyle Youmans, DallasCowboys.com, right here on 105.3 The Fan. And Kyle, obviously the defense was the first thing that jumped off the screen against the Bills, but the offense didn't help them out in any way, shape, or form. And a lot of this, or some of this rather, was because, Dak Prescott was not at the same level that he had been for over a month playing quarterback. And we've seen this offense really turn the corner, at least we had after the bye week, and a lot of credit was given to Dak, clearly, but a lot of it was also given to Mike McCarthy, the play caller, and the ways in which this offense switched up. How much of the positive change for this offense that we saw can be attributed to just Dak Prescott playing like the best quarterback in the league? Because when he wasn't doing that, it feels like you lost almost all of that progression.
Yeah, it wasn't a good game for Dak, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it was the same caliber game that he had played since the bye week. But a lot of the success that he's had recently has been because the offensive line in front of him has gotten better and better and has protected for him. And they didn't protect very well against Buffalo. Buffalo had pressure on Dak significantly. He was running. He was trying to force some plays out of the pocket, and sometimes that leads to success, and that's part of how he has been successful. I think back to the Seattle game and the way that he played in his mobile abilities in that game. It allowed them to have big plays downfield. That didn't happen. Buffalo just beat you from a defensive perspective, and there wasn't a whole lot Dak could do. He tried to fit it in a couple ways. I thought the play calling maybe took a step back and it went conservative when Zach Martin wasn't in the fold, and maybe that is how big of an impact Zach Martin has. But if you're going to completely blame the drop-off in the Buffalo game on Dak Prescott, I don't think you can do that, nor can you completely praise him for everything that's gone right on the offensive side. That's a team unit that has worked well together. It's the offensive line allowing time for Dak to do exactly what Mike McCarthy has called. It's those three. It's that big triangle, and you've got weapons outside. We knew that in training camp. We knew CeeDee Lamb was going to have a good year. You knew Brandon Cooks would have an impact. Jake Ferguson has certainly been a nice surprise and a step up, but he's really filling the role that Dalton Schultz had in years prior, but he's doing it maybe at a quicker route than what Dalton Schultz did. So there's ways that this offense has clicked, but I don't think it clicks without one of those three units not necessarily working as well as they have. And on Sunday, I think we saw that. I think it was the offensive line that probably struggled more than anything, and because of that, it affected Dak Prescott and in turn affected the play calling for Mike McCarthy. You have to have all three of those things working in succession to really live up to the expectation that offense had set going into it.
Two of your starting offensive linemen pop up on the injury report today. Tyron Smith with a back injury and then Zach Martin with the thigh injury he suffered in that loss to the Bills. Any concerns with those two guys going into Sunday?
Certainly. Yeah. It kind of goes back to what I just said. If Zach Martin is out, and I think TJ Bass did a nice job, and he's an undrafted free agent rookie. Let's not think he's a first-round pick that's finally getting his opportunity. I mean, he's come in and done a really nice job, and I don't want to knock TJ Bass for what he did on Sunday against the Bills, but he isn't Zach Martin. That's the other part of it. He may be doing the best that he can, but he's still not 70. He's still not an all-pro player. You can say the same thing about Tyron Smith, who probably, if he's not available and he's unavailable to go, which I haven't heard to that extent. I mean, he did not practice today. I'm sure we'll get more clarification on that tomorrow. But if he can't go, then it's probably Chuma Edoga out at left tackle, and then you've got TJ Bass at right guard, and that has a recipe similar to what we saw against the Arizona Cardinals in Week 3. So I don't love it. Having those two guys out of the fold would be significant, and they've both played exceptionally well throughout the year, and not having them in the fold would certainly affect things.
Kyle, before we let you go, I know obviously all over the Dallas Cowboys, but also in the Metroplex, you do a good amount of high school football coverage and keeping up with those boys. Obviously, last weekend you had a lot of UIL high school state championship action, and it seems like so very many of the state champions are from the North Texas area generally. Yeah. Is there anything to that, or is that just a happy coincidence for the North Texas area?
Yeah, man, it goes back to Texas high school football in general. Texas high school football is the best high school football in the country, and I will say that forever. I mean, there's nothing like it, and I feel like it's pretty well known across the country now that the Lone Star State does it right. But out of the high school football in Texas, the best high school football is in Dallas-Fort Worth, and they set the tone last year. Last year was kind of the prequel to what was going to happen this time around, whenever they had the top three divisions all locked up with Duncanville, DeSoto, and South Oak Cliff. Like, those three winning it last year pretty much set the tone. This year, it was really the lower levels. You had Gunner making a run. You had Anna winning a state championship. Malakoff for the first time in program history. Duncanville, DeSoto did what they did, and unfortunately, South Oak Cliff falls 3 points short. But, man, what a team and what a run that was again to possibly three-peat for Dallas ISD. It really has been an influx of talent, but also an investment made in the community of Dallas-Fort Worth and what they've done for Texas high school football. It's gone a long way, and there's been a lot of great partners in the area like Whataburger and the Cowboys that have invested in it themselves. And so really cool to watch. It's always one of my favorite weekends of the year. I wasn't able to make it out to AT&T Stadium. Of course, I've been around to a lot of the high school playoff games in the area through the lead into it. Wasn't able to make it to the actual state championships for the first time in maybe 7 years. And so unfortunate with that, but certainly something I'll continue keeping my eye on in the future. And Dallas-Fort Worth is going to continue to dominate.
Kyle, we appreciate the time and the great work you do here in the Metroplex, covering pretty much every sport there is nowadays. We appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Y'all have fun.